Out of nowhere, someone started yelling in confusion, wondering what was going on. He said he'd felt completely fine just a moment ago, so why had everything suddenly gone dark? Annoyed, he muttered that paying this month's electricity bill was clearly a waste, then paused, realizing something felt off. It wasn't just darkness, it felt like something was covering his eyes. A faint strip of light slipped through. Beneath a large red mushroom cap dotted with white spots, a pair of wide, uneasy eyes peeked out. A small, pale hand reached up, shaking slightly, as the creature nervously tried to lift the heavy cap. Once it managed to move it aside, it found itself standing in front of a rough stone wall. The reaction was immediate. He shouted in shock, clearly not prepared for what he was seeing. Looking down at a puddle nearby, he caught his reflection. That's when things started coming back to him. He remembered being in bed earlier, caught up in an intense moment with a beautiful woman. The memory was vivid, the heat, the closeness, everything. Then it hit him. Somehow, that was the last thing he experienced before ending up here, now as a small mushroom creature. He flopped around on the ground, going on about how ridiculous this was. He complained that this had to be some kind of joke and questioned how he was supposed to flirt with anyone looking like this. He even demanded his old, attractive face back. Then a voice called out, "Brother Xingbao." He turned toward the cave entrance, where a shadowy figure stood. As he focused, his imagination kicked in, and suddenly he pictured a stunning woman in a stylish outfit, surrounded by floating hearts and flowers. For a moment, he was completely captivated, thinking maybe this place wasn't so bad if it had girls like that. But the illusion didn't last. The image faded, revealing a small purple mushroom person instead. The purple one asked why Xingbao had been saying such strange things all day. Xingbao awkwardly admitted he got carried away and asked what he usually said instead. The purple mushroom explained that mushroom creatures typically stuck to simple lines, like shouting about intruders and attacking them. Right on cue, a shout echoed from deeper in the cave. Xingbao turned just in time to see another mushroom creature charging forward, yelling about intruders. Behind it, a huge foot slammed into the ground, attached to a muscular orc with glowing red eyes. Two figures approached. Labu, a level 1 orc archer, and Kabu, a level 1 orc warrior. Labu sounded unsure, asking if they'd really be fine without a healer. Kabu brushed it off, saying there was nothing to worry about since the monsters here were the weakest kind. He explained that dungeon monsters weren't smart anyway, they just followed fixed patterns. Almost immediately, a small mushroom enemy leaped forward, shouting its attack line. Kabu didn't hesitate. He swung his blade and cut it down in one clean move. The creature let out a final cry as it collapsed. Kabu casually pointed out that this was exactly what he meant, suggesting they could probably clear the dungeon quickly again today. Moments later, a whole group of mushroom creatures rushed in, all yelling the same thing, only to be cut down one after another by Kabu's relentless strikes. Watching all of this unfold, Xingbao was left stunned. Standing next to him, the purple mushroom wondered out loud why their kind always rushed straight into danger like that, instead of backing off when they clearly couldn't win. Then it explained that they were NPCs, meaning everything they did was pre-programmed. They didn't have the same freedom as players. Xingbao processed that and realized the two orcs were actually players, something he hadn't expected, since he assumed players were usually human. The purple mushroom added that, as an NPC with only a bit of extra dialogue, that was pretty much all it knew. An arrow cut through the air with a sharp whistle, just barely missing. Up on a rocky ledge, Labu, the level 1 orc archer, stood with her bow ready. Xingbao reacted instantly, yelling in shock as he realized they were being attacked. He told the purple mushroom to run, but the little guy just stood there, looking confused. Without wasting time, Xingbao rushed over, grabbed him, and told him they needed to move. The purple mushroom calmly explained that running away wasn't something they were programmed to do. Xingbao didn't accept that. He reached out and told him to grab his hand. The moment they touched, the space around them flickered violently. Red system warnings popped up everywhere, flashing messages about errors and data issues. Xingbao pushed through it anyway, saying none of that mattered, they just needed to stay alive. The purple mushroom stared at him, clearly amazed, as Xingbao dragged him along and broke into a run. Up on the ledge, Labu watched the scene unfold, confused. She wondered when mushroom creatures started running away and questioned if what she was seeing was even accurate. Beside her, Kabu shrugged it off, saying it was probably just some kind of bug. He mentioned filing a report once they were out and casually told Labu not to get taken out while he logged off to report it. Labu shot back that he had to be joking if he thought she'd go down in a place like this. Meanwhile, Xingbao and the purple mushroom ducked behind a stack of logs. Xingbao quickly asked if there were any weapons they could use, but the answer was no, their kind wasn't designed to carry any. Just then, something caught his eye across the cavern. He pointed it out, excited, after spotting a large treasure chest. The purple mushroom warned him that those chests were only meant for players and couldn't be opened by them. Xingbao ignored that and reached for it anyway. As soon as he did, the glitching came back even stronger. More warning messages filled the air, and his hands started glowing with a strange, jagged energy. With a strong push, he forced the chest open, sending bits of wood flying. The purple mushroom stood there, stunned, thinking that the Xingbao he knew would never be able to do something like that. It couldn't figure out how he had suddenly changed so much. Xingbao didn't stop to explain. He immediately started digging through the chest, saying there was a lot of useful stuff inside. Before he could do much more, another arrow came flying in. Without thinking, the purple mushroom jumped in front of him, taking the hit. Even it didn't understand why it moved like that. It knew protecting others wasn't part of its programming, but it still chose to block the attack. The arrow hit, sending it tumbling back as purple blood splashed out. From above, Labu called out that she was firing again. She released another arrow, aiming straight for Xingbao. As it sped toward him, Xingbao pulled out a sword from the chest. With a quick swing, he struck the arrow mid-flight, knocking it away in a burst of sparks. On the ledge, Labu could only stare. She noticed the sweat forming on her face as it sank in. What she just saw didn't make sense. A basic mushroom creature had just deflected her shot and opened a chest that should have been off-limits to anything but players. Looking down at the scene, she quietly realized this wasn't some small glitch. It was something much bigger. Near a rocky clearing, right beside a swirling purple portal, a massive orc gave his report to a shadowy administrator, saying these were the bugs they had found this time. The figure simply acknowledged it, but the orc wasn't satisfied and went on to question how long the dungeons had been running and why issues like this still kept appearing. A cloaked figure stepped out from the darkness. He explained that with systems this old, small mistakes during maintenance were unavoidable, so minor bugs showing up wasn't anything unusual. He continued by explaining how it all started. After the Great Lich defeated the human coalition long ago, he became concerned that the remaining heroes would cause trouble if they had nothing to do. So, he created the dungeon system to keep them occupied. Since then, those heroes had been entering as players, spending their time grinding monsters, collecting resources, and leveling up just to pass the time. Whenever they found a bug, they were supposed to report it to the necromancer admins and wait for it to be fixed. The scene shifted inside the dungeon. The orc archer clearly had no interest in waiting. She raised her bow and said she'd deal with the problem herself. A powerful arrow shot forward, aimed straight at a small red-spotted mushroom creature. The mushroom reacted quickly, dodging the attack. As it moved, it started realizing that this body actually had pretty solid base stats. The orc didn't slow down, sending arrows one after another. In response, the mushroom pulled out a cleaver and started deflecting them. Even so, it admitted to itself that getting closer wasn't easy with such short legs while being pressured non-stop. Then it spotted a nearby treasure chest and wondered if there was something it could use. As another arrow came flying in, the mushroom grabbed the wooden lid and rushed forward, using it as a shield to block the incoming shot. Watching this, the orc reacted in disbelief, pointing out that a mushroom creature was actually using a chest lid like proper gear. The way it moved made it feel less like a monster and more like a player. Using the scattered debris as support, the mushroom pushed off and launched itself into the air, spinning with its cleaver. The orc looked up just in time to see it coming down. In one clean motion, the mushroom struck, releasing a bright blue arc that cut straight through her. Her body split apart as the mushroom landed. A glowing blue interface appeared, announcing that it had just secured its first kill. More messages followed, listing newly unlocked racial abilities. One allowed it to connect with other mushroom units, sharing information, spores, and even experience. Another let it plant itself or others onto corpses or nutrient-rich areas to recover and gain abilities from what it absorbed. The last one gave it the option to switch between its current form and another reshaped version. The mushroom stared at the floating text, briefly wondering if it had actually gained a system. Then it brushed it off, deciding that after everything else, this wasn't that strange. The system announced that the skill plant mushroom had been activated. The creature moved its foot toward the fallen orc's body, and thin fungal tendrils extended outward, piercing into the flesh as the absorption began. Almost instantly, it reacted out loud, describing the sensation as strangely overwhelming and addictive. Once the process ended, the mushroom creature stood over what remained of the defeated hero. It then recalled how the purple mushroom had stepped in earlier to block an attack for him. Without hesitating, he carefully placed the purple mushroom's body on top of the orc woman's remains, saying it was now his turn to save her. He activated plant mushroom again. A soft pink glow spread from his hand, growing brighter as energy rose from the corpse. The light gathered and slowly began forming a shape, an outline of a woman taking form within the glow. The pink glow grew stronger, lighting up the area as the mushroom man let out a long, stunned reaction, completely caught off guard by what was happening. His expression turned exaggerated and over the top as the energy kept building. Then, as the smoke slowly cleared, a figure stepped forward. A woman appeared, long dark hair flowing behind her, marked with a distinct pink streak, and sharp elf-like ears framing her face. Right after, a system window appeared, laying out her details. It showed that she was now a level 2 Mushroom Man archer, ranked as a guard, with agility as her main strength and the mycelium racial trait. More information followed, explaining her abilities. She could recover by absorbing nutrients from fallen enemies, and even take in their skills and traits during the process. One of those, Orc Berserk, was already active, boosting her damage for a short time. She also had a skill that allowed her to fire spore-based shots that drained enemies while restoring her own health. The woman then knelt in front of him, addressing him as her chief and asking what name she should carry. Another system prompt appeared, telling him to name his first subordinate. He paused for a moment, wondering if creatures like them usually even had names, then pointed at her and decided she would be called Siphong. She accepted the name without hesitation and immediately asked which dungeon they were going to clear next. He corrected her right away, reminding her that they weren't players, they were monsters, part of the dungeon itself. His expression shifted into something darker, a wide grin spreading across his face as his eyes gave off a faint glow. He made it clear that their goal wasn't to clear anything, but to eliminate the remaining player. Nearby, a huge orc warrior came across what was left of Labu, just a skull and scattered remains. He paused, clearly thrown off, muttering that there was no way someone like Labu could have been taken out by something so low tier. He figured a normal level 1 mushroom man couldn't pull that off, so he convinced himself it had to be a rare elite. That idea alone got him fired up, already thinking about the kind of loot it might drop, maybe even some blue gear. Without wasting time, he activated his skill, Orc Charge. The mushroom man steadied himself, gripping his cleaver as the orc closed in. With a powerful leap, the orc brought his axe crashing down, smashing the ground hard enough to crack the stone beneath. The mushroom man slipped out of the way at the last second and answered with a quick slash across the orc's thigh. Blood sprayed out from the cut. The mushroom man noted to himself that this one was far tougher than the archer from before. His attack barely made a dent. The orc, meanwhile, was furious, shouting that the mushroom man had no right to land a hit like that. Instead of pressing the fight, the mushroom man turned and ran toward a nearby cave. The orc charged after him, heavy footsteps pounding behind. Their chase led them across a wooden bridge. By the time the orc reached the other side, the structure behind him gave way, collapsing into pieces. Smoke and dust drifted through the air as the orc looked up and spotted the mushroom man standing calmly on a wooden platform above. He smirked, wondering out loud why the creature was just standing there, staring without moving. For a second, he considered the idea of a trap, but quickly brushed it off, saying it was just an NPC. Still, the silence got under his skin, making him feel like he was being laughed at. His face tightened as he yelled that he'd turn the mushroom man into paste. He swung his axe with full force, but the impact caused the platform itself to crack and give way. The wood shattered beneath him, and suddenly he was falling, looking up in shock as he dropped straight toward the water below. He hit the surface with a loud splash. When he came back up, he shouted angrily, calling the attack cheap and underhanded. Above him, the mushroom man stood at the ledge, observing that the orc had lost his weapon and was now slowed down in the water. Without hesitation, he threw his cleaver downward. The blade struck the orc's shoulder, drawing another burst of blood. The orc scoffed, calling the mushroom man weak, saying that attacks like that wouldn't do much while he was in the water. The orc struggled to stay afloat, still talking through the fight as he mocked his opponent, wondering out loud what kind of damage someone that weak could even deal. Before he could finish, an arrow cut through the air and hit him straight in the neck, spraying blood everywhere. He started coughing hard, blood spilling from his mouth as he demanded to know who was attacking him from the shadows. His strength gave out, and he dropped backward into the water with a heavy splash. For a moment, his hand reached up from the surface, then slowly disappeared beneath it. High above, a figure stood quietly on a rocky ledge, watching everything unfold. A system message popped up, announcing that the orc berserk effect had ended, while the mushroom man stood near the water below. Another message followed, confirming that the orc warrior had been eliminated. The mushroom man looked down at what was left floating in the water and figured it was finally his turn. He reached out toward the corpse, and strands of pink energy started wrapping around it. A bright glow surrounded him as the system displayed that his appearance was being reshaped. Steam and pink light swirled around his body. When it cleared, a human figure stood in place, a muscular man with dark hair and a noticeable white streak. He let out a laugh, saying he had finally put himself back together. From above, Siphong looked down, her face turning red as she called out, confused about what she was seeing swinging below. The man, now Yongjun, lifted a large weapon and casually said it was just an axe handle. In his head, he admitted that she had startled him for a second, since he'd briefly worried he might have forgotten to put on clothes. A full system screen appeared in front of him. LV2. Mushroom Man Chief Yongjun. Rank Chief. Class, Warrior, Blue. Primary Stat, Strength. Racial Talent, Mushroom Man Mycelium. He noted that after taking damage, he could extend mycelium to absorb nutrients from corpses or other materials to heal. During that process, he could also take in enemy skills and racial traits. Racial Talent absorbed. Orc Berserk. He saw that it had a 5-minute cooldown and boosted his damage by 30% for 20 seconds, making it ideal for close combat. Another notification appeared, explaining that his plant mushroom skill had upgraded. Now he could release spores from his body, plant them into corpses or nutrient sources, and grow soulless shroom minions. Their experience would be shared with him, and they could even be transferred onto other minions. The system showed he could currently control 2. Then came the loot summary. Other loot. Magic Pouch X2. He read that they were small pouches capable of compressing and storing a limited number of items, including weapons. Now dressed in some ragged clothes he'd picked up earlier, Yongjun looked over at Siphong and asked how they were supposed to get out of this place. She explained that they were at the lowest floor of the mushroom dungeon and would have to fight their way up, one level at a time. He questioned why level 1 orc players could go straight to the bottom. Siphong replied that players had certain advantages and could choose to enter lower-level dungeons directly. When he asked how she knew that, she said she had picked it up from player chats back when she was still an NPC. Yongjun decided they'd push their way out. The two walked together until they reached a split in the path. He asked what was on each side. Siphong told him the left path led to a level 1 slime floor, while the right led to a graveyard. He told her to head to the slime floor and farm experience while he checked out the graveyard. She didn't quite get why, but his eyes gave off a sharp red glow as he explained that even if it was just a graveyard now, it would eventually become their territory. With that, he headed off alone into the darker path, noting how strong the smell was even from a distance. He spotted a massive pile of bones and waste. He figured that corpses and garbage must have been dumped down from somewhere above. Even though the pile had been sitting there for a long time, he could tell there were still usable nutrients left. As he scanned through the debris, a few items stood out to him. Residual large potion and humus mixture residual tar and humus mixture torn magic book and humus mixture. He noted that aside from Siphong, he still had room to create one more shroom minion. Raising his hand, pink energy began to swirl over the scattered bones and discarded materials as he started planting. When the light faded, a small mushroom stood at the center, a white body topped with a jagged red crown that flickered like fire. A system window appeared, showing the new minion's details. Level 2. Pyro Shroom. Primary Stat. Fire. Skill. Pyroblast. Fires a blast that explodes on impact, setting the target's limbs on fire and draining nutrient. Skill. Blazing Sprint. Boosts movement speed by 50% using fire. Yongjun looked it over, noting that it gave off a fierce presence, even if its size was on the smaller side. Before he could react further, blue lightning suddenly spread across the cavern. A massive deep blue snail slid into view, its glowing antennae sparking as arcs of electricity moved across its thick shell. A system tag identified it as a level 2 graveyard dominator, a lightning snail. Yongjun kept watching, recognizing it as a creature that fed on the same kind of nutrients as mushroom men. In his mind, that made it direct competition. He decided it was the perfect chance to see what the Pyro Shroom could do. The Pyro Shroom ignited, gathering a large fireball above its head before launching a pyroblast. The attack shot forward and struck the snail, triggering a heavy explosion that filled the area with flames and thick smoke. As the smoke drifted away, the snail's scorched body came into view, still crackling with leftover electricity. Yang Jun observed that its movements were slow, quietly noting that this was something he could take advantage of. The Pyro Shroom activated Blazing Sprint, turning into a streak of fire as it rushed forward. It unleashed another explosion against the snail's shell, sending a loud blast echoing through the cavern. When the smoke cleared again, the snail lay still, looking like it was finished. The Pyro Shroom happily waved at Mushroom Boy. Mushroom Boy told the Pyro Shroom to stop messing around and make sure the enemy was actually dead. The Pyro Shroom gave him an okay sign. Then, out of nowhere, its head went flying. The lightning snail suddenly burst out of its shell. It was still alive, and now it was standing on two legs. Mushroom Boy attacked immediately, but the snail mocked him, saying he'd never land a hit. It zipped behind him, and their attacks collided. The lightning snail joked that Mushroom Boy was slower than a snail. That was when Mushroom Boy realized the truth. Once the creature abandoned its shell, its speed became insane. Without all that extra weight, it could move almost like lightning itself. The snail rushed him again. This time, Mushroom Boy read the attack perfectly. At the last second, he ducked, revealing a fireball the Pyro Shroom had already prepared behind him. The fireball shot straight toward the lightning snail. But the snail dodged at the final moment. More fireballs rained down after it, yet it kept laughing and saying they still couldn't hit it. Mushroom Boy simply watched in silence. The lightning snail bragged that even though they were the same level, Mushroom Boy's attacks had completely missed. Mushroom Boy calmly replied that he hadn't missed at all. He explained that the snail was never the real target. Right after he said that, huge rocks from the ceiling crashed down. The lightning snail finally realized the plan. Even then, it still believed it could dodge everything. At that moment, Mushroom Boy activated Orc Berserk and Orc Charge. The whole area turned chaotic as smoke and debris filled the battlefield. The lightning snail realized Mushroom Boy was using the smoke as cover. The snail still trusted its speed. Then the Pyro Shroom suddenly appeared in front of it while Mushroom Boy rushed in from behind at the same time. The snail never expected layered attacks like that. It got caught completely off guard. The impact smashed the creature into the wall so hard that its body burst apart, leaving blood splattered everywhere. Mushroom Boy placed his hand over the remains. A notification appeared, announcing the destruction of the electric snail. His nutrient points increased, and he unlocked Shroom Soldier Spores. He also leveled up to level 3. Now he could cultivate 3 Shroom Soldiers, and he learned a new skill called Etherealize. Through this ability, Shroom Soldiers connected to his mycelial network could awaken, absorb nutrients, and increase their combat power. Using the new skill, he planted another Shroom Soldier. This one was called Volt Shroom. Its main attribute was electricity. It specialized in speed and could convert absorbed nutrients into electrical energy before releasing electric shocks at enemies. It also entered an ethereal state. At this point, Mushroom Boy's forces included a level 3 Volt Shroom and a level 2 Pyro Shroom. He felt pretty satisfied with the results and ordered both of them to clean up the graveyard quickly. From now on, this place would become the Mushroom Men's base camp. Then he suddenly wondered how Siphong was doing. It had been a while since he gained any shared experience points from her, which probably meant she had run into trouble. Meanwhile, Siphong had already defeated countless slimes when a new monster appeared. It asked if she was the one treating its underlings like target practice. The creature introduced itself as the level 2 Slime King. It stared at her for a moment and said she looked strangely familiar, like they had met before somewhere. Before it could finish talking, Siphong shot it. The Slime King got annoyed and complained that it hadn't even finished speaking yet, calling her rude. Then it noticed another attack coming. Several arrows pierced into its body, but it laughed and claimed arrows were useless against slime. The Slime King punched Siphong hard. It proudly explained that it wasn't like the weaker slimes she fought earlier. Its body was highly flexible, so physical attacks only made it lose a little fluid. It could simply absorb more moisture from the ground and recover endlessly. Then it declared that Siphong was dead and prepared another heavy punch. But Siphong didn't move at all. Suddenly, the Slime King's arm exploded. The monster became confused as its body started collapsing. Then it noticed mushrooms rapidly growing across its body. More and more spread over its back, while even the groundwater beneath its feet got drained dry by the mushrooms. The Slime King finally realized what happened. The parasitic spores had probably been attached to the arrowheads from the beginning. Then it remembered where it had seen her before. She was that pink-capped mushroom man. Soon after, the Slime King completely dissolved and dropped a minotaur horn as loot. Siphong picked it up. The item unlocked a new ability that allowed Mushroom Boy to use his own mycelium to create bowstrings and arrows. These mycelial string arrows could even fire magic skills. The minotaur horn was stored inside the magic pouch afterward. Siphong then absorbed nutrients from the slime corpse, causing her experience points to rise rapidly. Mushroom Boy also felt the effects through their connection. A notification appeared announcing that Siphong had reached level 4. She unlocked Mycelial Arc, which allowed her to create weapons and arrows directly from her own mycelium while letting those arrows fire magical abilities. At the same time, another notification informed Mushroom Boy that he had also reached level 4. He unlocked a new skill called Force Shroom. This ability allowed hostile shrooms within the mycelial network to resonate with one another, gather information across large areas, and greatly improve teamwork through the network. Later, Siphong finally arrived at the graveyard and saw the shrooms already cleaning the area. She had come to help after finishing on her side, but the two newly created shroom soldiers had almost cleared everything already. Mushroom Boy commented that the graveyard wasn't that large anyway, so the cleanup went fast. He then examined the minotaur horn closely and mentioned that the material quality was incredible. It was much better than the broken cleaver they found earlier and even superior to the axe used by the level 1 orc player. Still, he regretted not having a craftsman capable of turning it into a proper weapon. Siphong asked if they should just capture a craftsman somewhere. Mushroom Boy replied that his newly unlocked skill was perfect for finding one. He suggested searching nearby areas for players or corpses with crafting abilities. He spread his mycelial network outward. Probe shrooms started growing across the field, allowing him to sense nearby activity. Through the network, Mushroom Boy discovered several monsters cornering a man. They told him there was nowhere left to run and demanded he return with them to forge weapons. The man refused immediately. He said he'd rather die than go back and live as a slave. He accused them of forcing his clansmen to work until they died from exhaustion. One blue orc-like monster responded by attacking him. The craftsman died shortly after. Through the probe shrooms, Mushroom Boy realized he had arrived too late. Siphong asked what happened and why she couldn't see anything through the network yet. Mushroom Boy explained that she needed to spread her own mycelium and connect herself properly to the network first. She followed his instructions, and soon she could see everything as well. Since they failed to save the living craftsman, Mushroom Boy decided they could still make use of the dead one. He calmly said that death was just another form of living. While everyone else stayed busy, the Pyro Shroom and Volt Shroom suddenly started fighting over a garbage bag. Then, in the middle of the argument, the Pyro Shroom disappeared. A bright red light glowed around the dead craftsman's body. When the light faded, a new Shroom soldier appeared, a level 4 Pyro Shroom dwarf craftsman. Its main stat was strength, and thanks to its fire attribute, it had strong resistance against flames. As a dwarf Shroom, it naturally possessed crafting knowledge along with high resistance to poison and physical attack. Since it specialized in forging, its fire affinity also boosted its crafting efficiency. It even had a special skill called Cannon Mycelium. This allowed it to release controllable chains of fire connected through Cannon Mycelium. The flaming chains could link into the network, share vision, and absorb stored nutrients to increase their damage. When the newly revived dwarf regained consciousness, he looked completely confused. Through a small shroom nearby, Mushroom Boy spoke to him and explained that he had revived him as one of his shroom soldiers. From that point onward, Mushroom Boy gave him the name Firehammer. Firehammer immediately tried to object, but Mushroom Boy interrupted him and explained that the probe shrooms had already been tracking the trolls responsible for everything. One of the trolls complained to his boss, saying that if all the dwarf slaves died from exhaustion, then nobody would be left to force into labor. The troll boss called him stupid and explained that if the current slaves died, they could simply enter the dungeon and capture more dwarf. According to him, the dwarf race still wasn't extinct, and there were always survivors hiding somewhere inside the dungeon. Then the troll suddenly noticed something strange. He questioned why mushroom men were wandering around near their territory when their nest was supposed to be nearby. Another troll guessed it was probably some wandering elite monster and got excited, saying they had just stumbled onto free loot. One of them threw a spear at the mushroom man standing nearby. The mushroom man didn't move at all. Instead, he pulled out a massive hammer and hurled it at them. The trolls barely reacted before a huge explosion erupted where the hammer landed. One troll managed to dodge at the last moment, but then the hammer suddenly floated back up and slammed into him automatically before he could react. The trolls were shocked. They couldn't understand how a level 3 elite monster had equipment this ridiculous. The hammer flew again. One troll blocked it with his sword and managed to knock it aside. The hammer spun upward and got stuck on top of a spike. Firehammer immediately used it as an anchor point. With a flaming rope attached to the hammer, he grabbed on and launched himself forward at high speed. A troll prepared to throw another spear, but suddenly his arm got restrained by mycelial entanglement. Right after that, mycelial ignition activated and blew his hand apart. Firehammer moved on to the next target instantly. He jumped onto a troll's back and smashed its face into the ground. Another troll swung a morning star at him, but Firehammer landed his punch first and launched the troll straight into the mountainside. Then Firehammer recalled his hammer back into his hand. The remaining troll watched in shock as Firehammer smashed apart the wooden supports above them, triggering a cave-in. Even after taking several hits, he could dodge the next attack. Firehammer activated Firehammer ignition, coating the hammer in flames. Then he followed it up with Flying Hammer Fire Rain. The troll immediately realized there was no escaping this one. The moment the hammer struck the ground, a chain of fiery explosions spread through the area. Soon after, the system announced that the giant deer player had been eliminated. Another notification appeared, announcing that Craftsman Firehammer had reached level 5. He unlocked a new skill called Scrap Recovery, which allowed him to smash leftover debris and recover usable materials from it. At the same time, Mushroom Boy also leveled up to level 5. He unlocked a new item called Bundle Foil, a rare and durable work tool that could be assigned to subordinates for forging, gathering, and cultivation tasks. In emergencies, it could also be used as combat gear. Siphong reached level 5 as well and unlocked Instant Backstep, a skill that allowed her to teleport directly to an arrow fired through her arrow thread. Mushroom Boy praised Firehammer for his work and sent him the coordinates to regroup. A little later, they finally met up. Firehammer hesitantly asked whether his chief was actually human. Mushroom Boy explained that the reshaped appearance of mushroom men depended on the race they had before transforming. Since he used to be human, his current appearance looked human too. He added that Siphong had also once been human before the Archmage transformed her into a mushroom man, which explained why her reshaped form looked human as well. Using that logic, Firehammer realized his own case was probably similar. Mushroom Boy then changed the topic and asked whether Firehammer could forge weapons using the Minotaur horn. Firehammer admitted the horn was excellent material, but warned that they still lacked enough supporting materials for proper forging. Mushroom Boy simply replied that they were standing inside the Great Graveyard, so materials would arrive eventually. Almost immediately after he said that, noises echoed from above, and discarded weapons began falling down through the garbage chute. Among the junk, they found a damaged magic iron bracelet. Firehammer used his salvage hammer skill to reforge it. After tossing it into the furnace, the broken equipment slowly transformed into usable magic iron ore. A level 5 farm shroom also assisted with the process. Not long after, Firehammer finished forging the equipment. He even used leftover scraps to make Mushroom Boy some proper pants and shoes. Mushroom Boy carefully examined the new double-edged sword. It was far superior to the crude orc axe he had used before. The sword possessed low-level magic power, allowing the user to channel mana through the blade and cast spells with it. The only downside was the material quality. Since it wasn't rare metal, prolonged use of high-intensity spells could eventually damage the weapon. Meanwhile, Siphong received an exquisite mycelial bow. Like the sword, it held low-level magic power. The bow allowed the user to form a bowstring using their own mycelium and channel spells directly into arrows. However, repeatedly firing powerful enchanted arrows could damage the bow itself. Firehammer also mentioned that he had sewn a magic pouch into Mushroom Boy's clothing, making weapon storage much more convenient. Afterward, Siphong asked where they planned to go next. Mushroom Boy answered that they were going to push through the floors above them. During the past few days, he had already explored the area using the mycelial network. The Great Graveyard sat at the very bottom of the dungeon. If they traveled upward through the garbage chute, Each floor contained one-way barriers that only allowed movement downward. However, every floor also had passages leading to the next level. That meant the only real way up was fighting through every floor one by one. Besides, Mushroom Boy had no intention of letting outsiders stay peacefully inside territory he now considered his own. Siphong asked if Firehammer would join them. She pointed out that having another shroom fighter would make them much stronger, especially since Firehammer seemed even scarier in combat than he was at forging. Mushroom Boy disagreed. Someone needed to stay behind and protect the base. There was no point conquering new territory if they came back later and found their home destroyed. Besides, Firehammer would still gain experience through the shared mycelial network whenever they killed monsters. As they continued forward, Mushroom Boy suddenly stepped onto something strange. A massive wall immediately dropped down between him and Siphong, separating them. He guessed it was probably a hidden trap connected to magic sigils. That also explained why the probe shrooms never detected it. At first, Mushroom Boy laughed and claimed the wall looked weak enough to destroy with one punch. He wrapped flame mycelium around his fist to create an explosive fire attack and punched the barrier. Instead of breaking, the wall blasted him backward. A glowing magic circle appeared where he had struck. Mushroom Boy quickly realized the wall was reinforced with a magic array, meaning brute force wouldn't work. He concluded that he and Siphong would have to continue along separate paths for now. Turning around, Mushroom Boy followed the route ahead, which led into an instance realm known as the Slimy Corridor. After entering, the entire environment changed. He noticed countless glowing eyes hidden in the darkness. Looking closer, he realized he had wandered into a snail nest. One of the snails recognized him immediately and accused him of killing their brother in the Great Graveyard. It ordered the others to attack. Electricity blasted toward Mushroom Boy from every direction. Mushroom Boy quickly planted his Volt Shroom. The lightning attacks slammed into the ground, and the snails believed they had finally taken revenge. Then one of them suddenly got sliced in half. A second later, another one died the same way. Mushroom Boy moved so quickly that the snails switched into shellless mode to increase their speed. They proudly declared that he was about to witness the terror of the shellless tribe. But then they sensed mycelium spreading beneath them. In an instant, Mushroom Boy trapped all of them at once and activated mycelial detonation. Massive explosions erupted across the nest one after another, while system notifications continuously announced his growing experience point.